This event is all about being a STEM ambassador, and I just have thought for so long in the past about being a STEM ambassador and never got round to it, and then found myself actually doing it and discovering how easy it was. And so I've been trying to tell everyone, go and do it, it's really easy. But I thought, well, why not have an event specifically for Women in Tech York about being a STEM ambassador? So in this set, we have me talking a bit about my experiences. We're going to have Abbie, who's from the STEM ambassador team and is the York hub. They are based in the Railway Museum, so very easy to access, and I never knew they were so close. So she's going to be talking a bit about what they do. We've got Paul, who's online, and this is why all the tech stuff's coming through and it's a bit challenging. He's going to be streaming in on Zoom, and hopefully we're going to be able to show that, and that'll all work. And he's a teacher at the Mount School. He's going to talk about why teachers need STEM ambassadors. So that's the first bit, and then we hope that you're going to be super inspired and going to go and sign up. And so the second section tonight, Abbie's then going to be doing a tour of the website, just showing you what it's all about, how you can sign up. Hopefully, although we think there might be a bit of a delay, Rebecca is going to be online in the background doing the tour. And the reason for that is that Rebecca is the product owner working at STEM Learning for the website. So we thought it would be a really nice way for you to see what she does at the same time and get a feel of a Women in Tech York kind of person. So that's the idea.
I'm Abbie. I'm the Engagement Officer for the York and North Yorkshire STEM Ambassador Hub. So for the 10 minutes, I'll be talking about what the STEM Ambassador Hub is, who I am, what my role is within that, and more importantly, what your role potentially could be if you were to become a STEM Ambassador too. It's a programme that I only knew about when I started the job in November 2020, so it's something that I realise is fairly hidden for some people, and it's something that you don't realise is a thing that exists, but it's totally for free, first of all, and it's a really fantastic opportunity to do some really fantastic outreach work, and especially for me meeting and talking to you all here today. We're here about women in tech and realising any issues that there is within the professional world of STEM about minority groups and just kind of how hidden the world potentially can be. So I think this is a really great opportunity to explore that a little bit more and see about how your contributions can make a difference, because your working knowledge and what you do on a day-to-day basis makes a huge difference to young people. So we are a national government-funded body that stretches across the whole of the UK. There are 31 different hubs, I think. So I'm part of the TransPennine Hub, which is a really fantastic opportunity for anybody who doesn't necessarily work or live in York, but kind of travels across the TransPennine region. There's a lot of kind of opportunity and stuff. I'm based in the National Railway Museum, which is especially cool if you're interested in trains, a bit of an engineering nerd, because what that means is that I work incredibly closely with the learning team, and we get to do some fantastic stuff on the museum floor. So through me, there's a whole host of opportunities that you can do there on the floor about getting that engagement amongst the Mallard and the Duchess and all those other fantastic trains too. Pixella. So the STEM ambassadors in the York and North Yorkshire region, which is the region that I kind of manage as an engagement officer, there are currently 725 people, and they stretch from every corner of the STEM world. They stretch from people who are studying, doing apprenticeships, they stretch to people who are retired, people who perhaps are on maternity cover, people that have left kind of the STEM world but still have some kind of personal interest. We have someone who works in nothing to do with STEM at all, but has a telescope, so is able to contribute through the telescope and be able to do things like that. So it's really not necessarily have to be related to your job. It's any interest you have at all and any inspiration you think you can possibly pass on to other people. And we're allowing anything. So I also work very closely with teachers across the whole of the York and North Yorkshire region, and I don't have a number on that, but I guess it's within the thousands of teachers, and Steph's nodding. There are, of course, so many schools, so many teachers that we're regularly in communication with, and teachers every single day are sending me an email saying, I really need your help, this student's really struggling to understand this piece of trigonometry. Do you know anybody who can help? And as part of my job for trying to know all of the ambassadors, I can kind of email someone who is a little bit of an expert in trigonometry, or perhaps is a civil engineer who works with bridges, however it may manifest, and kind of just give them a bit of a nudge and say, can you do a 20-minute talk about bridges? And it can be as simple as that. It can be really, really straightforward, and all it takes is you talking about your career and where you are, which it can make a huge difference. And I think especially during COVID as well, it's worth appreciating how small the world has become, especially when we're talking about young people. So the STEM Ambassador programme hopes and aims to deal with people from the ages of 3 all the way up to 18 and way into further education at universities. So we're really kind of trying to help kind of make the world a little bit larger for these students, especially coming out of the pandemic, as if, but especially in this world that we're currently in, where perhaps it's really difficult to find work experience opportunities. It's really difficult to find people like you in the world of STEM and be able to relate to somebody. So as a little bit of an exercise to kind of demonstrate the importance of knowing people that exist and potential job opportunities, I'd like you all to think a little bit about who you wanted to be when you were 7 years old, and really take a moment just to have a little bit of a think about who your aspirations were kind of at age 7. Was it your parents? Were they doing something really cool that you liked? Was your teacher super cool? Was it someone on telly or on the radio or in books? Whenever I do this thing with teachers, they always say that when they were 7 years old they wanted to be a teacher, which I think is really lovely. But you can see why, because at age 7 the key influences in your life are teachers, and they're the people that you see. Similarly, when we asked a group of year 3s in April last year about this, and the vast majority of the answers were teachers, doctors, vets, nurses, lots of people to do with footballing, quite a few people that said they wanted to be YouTubers, which makes sense considering what kids are into at the moment. But it's about kind of really kind of seeing who a 7-year-old has access to, who they're able to see physically, and therefore who they actually can want to be. They can only want to be someone who they know about, which is kind of why I think STEM ambassadors are really important. They are people who can go into a classroom or can virtually provide some kind of resource, or can do a talk, or can do a demonstration, or be on the museum floor. However it may however you choose to do your volunteering, you can be a person that a 7-year-old can remember and can think, you know, that person's just like me. They have the same interests. They like pizza. I like pizza. That's it. Say no more. And just to kind of cover some of the activities. So I think another great thing about the STEM Ambassador programme is you really get whatever you want from the programme. It can be as small as kind of thinking, well, my employer wants me to do 2 days of volunteering a year. This could be a good opportunity to reach out to a teacher and make these links and ask Abbie. It could be from this professional place. It could also be because you're trying to boost up your CV and be able to have some presenting skills, or be able to talk about doing some fun activities and hosting that kind of fun event. It can also be because you really appreciate the struggles that you experienced when you were younger, and perhaps you didn't see, it took you years maybe to work out what you wanted to be because the opportunities just weren't there for you. Perhaps you faced some hardships during that time and you don't want young people to go through the same hardships too. However it may be, there's a whole host of activities that possibly you can do, and I'm sure, Emma, you can talk about some of the fantastic things that you've been involved in. But it can be from as a smaller thing as sending me 3 activities that describe your job, 3 emojis that describe your job, sorry. So that's a shame. The only thing that's a shame about the slides not being up is that I had an example of one of the virtual resources that I like to run, where I ask STEM ambassadors to describe their job using 3 different emojis. And the idea being for kind of year 5, year 6 students to be able to go through it with a teacher and work out what it is the person does. And it's especially lovely because we have photographs attached to them too. So the students are able to look at the photographs and perhaps the person's doing something unconventional in the photo. So one of the examples is that somebody is sat at home watching the telly TV and watching a football match, I think. And the emojis were, you know, a laptop and were some numbers and figures like that. So they didn't really seem like they matched up. But the person actually works for the BBC and works on data analysis for football matches and kind of making sure that the website pairs up with it quite nicely. So yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So this is Laura, a lovely STEM ambassador. And I think it's quite obvious that she's in a lab coat in her photo. So perhaps people kind of, you know, it doesn't give much away. But the second one would be in a pen. You can kind of start thinking, and perhaps you could get the year 5s, year 6s kind of thinking in a classroom setting. Perhaps she looks at data. Perhaps she has to write down reports. What kind of job needs a lab coat and having to write down answers? What kind of thing could that be? And then a COVID mask, which of course everybody would go, COVID. But it's about this kind of conversation. So I think, yeah, it's perhaps fairly obvious about Laura's position and about the fact that she is in a lab coat. But like I said, it's about breaking down these stereotypes predominantly. This is my goal with this. And being able to demonstrate that a STEM professional can look like anybody, because that's who STEM professionals are. They don't have to be in a lab coat necessarily. They don't have to be doing something that you perhaps heard about. So perhaps you've heard about being a laboratory assistant. This is perhaps an easy one. But the example that I gave about kind of working for the BBC to do data analysis for football matches, perhaps is a little bit more of an unconventional thing, but still needs some really intense STEM skills and a degree and all of this fantastic knowledge. But just to go back to my slide here, this may be quite a useful one to talk about activities too. You're meant to read the writing. You can't really. But I guess I'll point you to the 3 kind of biggest sections of the pie chart. So I took this from our website, and it demonstrates of all of the activities that the TransPennine Hub region kind of assisted in or facilitated or was involved in, what actually happened. But I believe that the one in the top left was actually practical demonstrations. So people going into schools and perhaps either providing equipment or relying on the equipment within schools. That's perfectly fine. And just talking about your job using practical elements and being able to get messy or do something fun and exciting. The bottom 2 perhaps are a little bit easier. They're relating to careers. So the bottom one is about career talks and guidance and advice. So that's as minimal as doing a 20-minute Zoom call with a class, just as a starter activity for them perhaps. But it will be you talking for 10 minutes about your job and what you do and how you got there, and 10 minutes of students asking questions. It's pretty, you know, it's scary if you're not used to doing it, but I think it's a really fantastic opportunity if that's a skill that you're looking to develop. And the other option was career guidance on the museum floor. So for myself working at the National Railway Museum, of course it's a big one. But my colleagues work at the Science and Media Museum in Bradford and the Science and Industry Museum in Manchester. So if engineering and trains aren't your thing, media hopefully is, and if not, Science and Industry has you covered in Manchester, and that covers everything. How am I doing for time? That's all right, I thought it was. Cool. But in the second half of this, I'll talk a little bit more specifically about how to sign up. It's really easy. And if you have any questions about any more specific activities or anything, please have a chat. It's my job to be able to facilitate and enable people like yourselves to feel confident to do stuff like this. So if you don't feel confident, or if you do, either way, looking forward to hearing from you.
So I signed up with all the best intentions, and I did actually go on the website, and there's a way that you can kind of find teachers that are requesting ideas and kind of saying, I want someone to help. So I signed up to a couple of those, and then COVID hit. So I didn't actually do anything, and I don't think I did anything for about a year then, because I just didn't know where to start. And I kind of had a couple of conversations, and it was like, yeah, you could do some online virtual resources. And I was like, I could, but I don't really know what they want. I don't know what the teachers are wanting. And then Abbie and her colleague ran an ambassador showcase, which was online, and I got to meet some teachers. And basically, I showed up and spent 3 minutes talking about myself, just about my background, and what they really hooked onto was the fact that I'd done a little bit of work with the games industry. So of course kids immediately go, oh, games industry, jobs, yeah, okay, come and talk to them about how you can use tech and then science in the games industry. So off the back of that, a few teachers got in touch, and I ended up doing first of all a video which was just talking about all the different kind of ways that science can be used in the games industry. So I did silly things like thinking about how maths and knowing about 3D, well, you're moving, if you're in Minecraft, you're moving blocks around, so there's 3D there. And, oh, okay, so you're running through and you're picking something up and you're dropping it, and so there's physics involved, and you've got to understand the physics of the space. And then actually in Minecraft, and I particularly picked Minecraft because I know a lot of kids play with it, you've actually got places where you forge things and you've got to find different elements and stuff. So there's an element of chemistry in there. And then the AI are running around and all these kind of gremlins are chasing you and stuff. So there's AI in there too. And so I just tried to find different ways of explaining that to them. And I did that in a video. Now, the great thing about a video is that then that's available for other people to use as well. So there's also something in the scheme where in the website where you can put offers out and you can say, I've got this, if any teachers want it. And so the teachers will then come to you and say, oh yeah, can I have this? Or can I have this but? And this is the age group I'm looking for. And so I've done that with a couple of things. So I'd done this particular talk, and I also did I got asked by a friend to do a talk for a careers show about my route to becoming what I was, from maths to a career coach is what the talk was, but going via tech. And so that was there as well. So I just put that up. And I've been inundated with teachers asking me, can you come along to this event and just talk about your career? Can you come along to this event and just do this? Could you come and drop in and just do 10 minutes talking to my students? Could you do a Q&A session? And I haven't done all of them. And that's the lovely thing. And that's because Abbie's very good, she sort of says, yeah, you don't need to reply to all of them. Just do the ones that you can and the others will cope. And so I've ended up replying to a few, volunteering, and really it's just been ad hoc, sort of half an hour here and there, saying this is my career, this is what I do, this is how you can use science and maths in the things that you might end up doing. And the way I see it is mainly just that I'm there as a female voice saying, yes, I do these things too. And if these kids see that, then that's going to give them a bit of inspiration. So that's kind of how I started and how I got going. And I've now moved a little bit further on. So well, there was a session that I did probably about 2 or 3 months ago, which was with a school down in Hounslow, and they got in touch via a similar route, but they asked me to do a Q&A. Similarly, it was about my career, but that Q&A session was, the teacher was really good on that because they'd kind of asked the kids 4 questions in advance and then they sent them over to me. And so they were asking their own questions, and he had it really well set up. So we were actually it was like I was talking to them, like I was there in the room. And that was really, I got buzzing from that. And then Abbie put a call out again for some resources for the Maths Week. Is it a National Maths Week or something like that coming up? So they asked for coming up with ideas of where you use maths in your job. Now, as a coach, I no longer really use maths that much in my job. I mean, it's not to do with finances and stuff like that, but it's not my maths degree. But what I've been doing is I've been going to art classes. And in my art classes recently, we've been looking at the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence. And I'd never really looked into the Fibonacci sequence before until we started looking at how it's applied to art. And I was just like, wow, I wish I'd known this. I wish I'd known exactly how this came through and how much is in. We looked at it in nature, but then we started looking at it in art, and we started looking at how you could use it to frame your pictures. And so I ended up thinking, well, that's a great example for kids. It's a really good bit of work you can do, is that you could introduce them to this, and then they can go out looking for flowers and count the petals on flowers, or they can look at leaves or pineapples or whatever it is. They can go and find the Fibonacci sequence for themselves. And then you could also build an activity around it where they were then drawing something and using it for that. So I just thought, well, that could be a really good thing to put together. So I started putting this thing together and realised that I then needed to do a load of research. And this is because Abbie was saying there's other kind of things that come at it. If you've got a project that you want to do, find out more about, they say the best way to learn something is to have to teach it. Well, if you've got to go and teach it to a load of kids, then you've got to go and do your research and find out about it. So I now kind of have looked into the Fibonacci sequence, still trying to find out why it's not used and why the golden ratio isn't used in engineering, because it looks like if things are and ratios are in nature, they appear in other things and we use them for inspiration, but it's not really used in engineering. So I'm still finding that one out. But it got me really interested, and I put this 10-minute video together, I think, which is going out to lots of different schools as a resource. So it's like, that's pretty good fun. And that probably is the longest I've put into something. So it probably took me about 3 or 4 hours to put that together and package it up. But then I do quite a lot of videos, so I was used to doing that. And then the final thing I'm going to mention is the STEM clubs. So Paul's going to come in a moment, hopefully, from the Mount School. Now, Abbie again kind of approached me and said, well, you're in York. The Mount School are looking for a STEM ambassador that could come in and work with their after-school STEM club. Would you be interested in doing the odd thing or maybe something bigger? And I said yes, and then it took me ages to go and see them. But I got to go in and see them just before Christmas, just to see what they did, so I could get an idea of what sort of activities they might like. And I got to sit in on a chemistry lesson, effectively. They had crystals, they were making kind of coloured rainbows by putting different pHs in. And I was like, oh, this is like being back at school, but doing the really cool stuff. And all the stuff that you could imagine, I'm sure we could feed them ideas and say, we used to do this, do you remember that? Or that would be really cool to do. They just want ideas like that to keep these kids who have been in school all day, entertained, and because they're all quite hyper because they're out of school, so you've got to come up with something that's going to keep their attention but not for too long and move on to things. So I went along to that and came away thinking, oh, I could probably come up with a series of things that they could do over a half term or something like that. So that's now my next stage is and I'm trying to come up with a series of lessons that they could do around building a game. And that's kind of where I am at the moment. But what I wanted to get across to you really is that you don't have to go in and sort of with loads of time to put into it or loads of effort or loads of equipment. I don't have access to any scientific equipment. That's not my background and not what I do. But if you've worked in any area of tech, you probably have loads of stories that will inspire these kids. So it's just getting out and doing it. So.
My name's Paul Davies, and as I said, I'm from the Mount School, York. I teach physics and computing. Yeah, women in tech is definitely something I'm interested in getting people involved with the STEM ambassadors. I guess I'm talking more about from the side of a wish list of schools. So I sent out a message to teachers and I said, what is it ideally you would like some STEM ambassadors to come in and do with the school? So Emma's already mentioned her support with the clubs. I guess the struggle we have as teachers is sometimes just coming up with new ideas, keeping them fresh. You know, the girls will move through from year 6, 7, 8, 9, and the same ones might be joining the club. And, we've got our list of activities that we might do. And it's great to get some fresh ideas from people outside of the school, from the STEM ambassadors. There's obviously specialist equipment that we don't have at school. Either it's too expensive or we wouldn't normally use it in a lesson, so we can't. We wouldn't normally buy it. There are also some STEM ambassadors who've come in the past with sets of equipment ready to go, ready to launch into a small session with a junior school group or something like that. Obviously, context that we're not aware of from your areas of expertise, and obviously tech is moving so fast nowadays. I like to think that I'm keeping up with it, but I'm sure there's areas that you're all working on that I might not have even heard of. So yeah, getting context of what people are working on now would be fantastic. I'm going to talk about the Crest Award activities later on. But that would be great as well if we could get people who could link what they do outside of school to some of the Crest Award requirements, which we'll talk about again in a second. The other area that some of the teachers would love to have support in is any specialist support in required practical activities. So the details are a bit dry and a bit pedagogical, but the new A-levels require, and the new GCSEs require students to carry out specific experiments to develop their skills for university. Now, obviously, we've got certain criteria that we have to meet. And unfortunately, I guess we teach to that because those are the requirements we have to meet. But again, any support from outside where we can get people who are doing practicals that are in their real work, and so the students can see how these practicals actually work in real life and not just because they're being told to do it for an exam, would be fantastic. I'll put some links there for the A-level required practicals and applying scientific methods. If you want to check it out, and you can see if any of your areas of expertise link to any of the scientific methods that we have to teach in the classroom. We can be especially pushed for time sometimes, especially now due to the lost learning due to COVID. So while it's fantastic to provide extracurricular opportunities, we can be really pushed for trying to just get through the syllabus and make sure we've taught everything to the highest level possible. So if anybody out there is able to create links between what they do in their industry and directly what's in the curriculum, that would be even better, just to almost co-teach a part of the curriculum, and then two birds with one stone, if you will. So there was also some suggestions of maybe industry visits. Again, it's very much mainly about how does this all work in the real world, which within the classroom, we can show videos, which are fantastic, but getting on hands-on is even better. Sorry, another little bit of a dry teachery bit, but if, again, you are interested in really creating those links between the activities and the specifications, I've put a couple of links here to the AQA, GCSE and GCE specifications that we teach, but AQA is the most popular, but you'll have schools that do Excel and things like that. So there are other specifications. And I just took this as a quick picture from my background of teaching A-level physics, and it's about the photoelectric effect, which again, I teach. We have some gold leaf electroscopes. We don't really have powerful enough UV lamps to actually demonstrate the effect of the photoelectric effect. I can show demonstrations and animations on the board. But again, I'm not saying anybody out there has a really powerful UV lamp and a gold leaf electroscope, but there are specific pieces of equipment, again, that we don't have, that you may have, that we would love for you to bring into the classroom. And so it brings us onto the CREST Award, which again is a fantastic resource, both for us and hopefully for yourselves if you do decide to work with the STEM ambassadors. So it's a nationally recognised scheme where students are encouraged to work independently to achieve a CREST Award of various different levels. And we try and encourage the students to do this. It's like the D of E of STEM. So they do get things like bronze, silver, gold awards. It's really well resourced. So it's not something to be worried about because it's so huge. It's actually so huge. It's really, really well resourced. So here's an example of an activity that the Superstar Award would do. So they would do 8 awards, and I've just put a link there, a QR code to the top right there, if you want to look at that. So we've got from star to superstar, and that's all the way from sort of like year 1s, 2s, 3s. And, you go in there and you do 1 hour activity, they absolutely love it. Like, you could just like this, make a little toy car, and they will love it. And you'll just see so many smiles on their faces. And they do 8 1 hour activities, and then in this case, they get their Superstar Award. And there's no pressure at all there. With the Gold Award, I've had some students in the past who've done a Gold Award, and that requires a minimum of 70 hours of work. So it's a huge piece of work. And hopefully some of you would perform the role of a mentor who would just guide them on the research that they're doing. And that's a very committed piece of work. And then finally, I'll just finish off with a very extremely high bar. I've done some Faraday challenge days from the IET. Hugely resourced. So obviously I'm not 100% sure where everybody's coming from, what companies they have backing them. But if you're interested in sort of an entire day and maybe leading an entire day, this is quite a good resource to look at. So yeah, those are just a few ideas. Hopefully there's some resources there for you to use as well. And if you don't get the slides directly to you, you can use the bit.ly links or QR codes. I hope you heard all that, but I'll sign off now. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. That was really great, really useful to see all the different days and ideas that we could have and that people could have with your students. I think there might be a few questions for you, but obviously there's a bit of a delay. We can always send them to you later, but thank you for including all the links. I've been following along as you've been going and reading about all the different syllabuses and things that I've long forgotten about. I have one question for you, if that's all right, if you've got time for it.
Yeah.
When STEM ambassadors come in, even if it's kind of their first engagement with the programme and having a go, do you find that the students respond really well to having kind of some real world experience in the room with them?
Yeah, they will definitely trust somebody external more than they would us. So if they say, when would we ever use this? And you always get that kind of question. If we say and give some really solid examples of when they would actually use it, unfortunately, it doesn't carry quite the same weight as somebody coming from with a real life background. Even if a teacher's had previous experience, because the students only know them as a teacher, it doesn't carry the same weight. So yeah, the impact that an external STEM ambassador can have is huge.
Thank you, Paul. That was really useful. And I deliberately asked Paul to come on and asked for a teacher, and Abbie and has helped us hook up as well. I think it's really, it was when I started talking to teachers and started hearing from them that I started realising, oh yeah, that the kids do want that real world kind of, we've been out there, we've done it, and yeah, we do use this stuff. Honestly, it's not just your teacher telling you it. So that's the real value. So that's why I wanted to encourage Paul to come in. Does anyone have any questions that they want to ask any of us? And if there's a question for Paul, we're going to try and message it through and then allow him to come back in and answer at the time.
So is there like a particular area that's really sought after that is sort of that you don't have enough?
It's entirely regionally speaking, and it very much depends on where we are in the world. So currently, for where we are in York, I know that there's a lot of engineers, and especially railway engineers. We've got loads of them, and it's fantastic and it's wonderful, especially because of the links to the museum. It works really nicely. People that we perhaps don't have enough of are people relating to biology and kind of ecologists, and people who can talk, especially with primary school ages, about the natural world and habitats and river management and things like that. Kind of towards the Scarborough coast, of course, we've got more people that do stuff like that, but considering how far away Scarborough is from York, it's not quite as feasible. But that being said, we're kind of looking for everybody. Although we're kind of looking more for biologists, perhaps, we're really looking for anybody. So I guess another thing that perhaps we're looking for, perhaps younger people, because older people stereotypically are more likely to have more time on their hands, especially if we're talking people who are retired. So they've got more time to be able to do this. But people perhaps within the first 10 years of their STEM career would be really valuable, because they know, perhaps they have a better idea about the education system, perhaps they've got a better idea about what it's like to be a new starter in these positions and kind of going up. But yeah, I hope that's answered your question. Thank you.
So we're planning on, if a decent group, I don't know how big it needs to be, but it can be as small as 5 people. Okay, so get 5 people registered. Right. Then Abbie, that they will run an induction specifically for us, and then also that gives us a chance to get together and brainstorm some stuff and think about things that we could take together. And wise everyone, but it might be that British Science Week we have some opportunities that we want to get stuck into, and that we think, it would, instead of just one of us doing it, then a few of us can get together and do it as a group, and that's a much easier way of doing these things. So we thought that could be a good opportunity to do an induction plus that, and don't underestimate the value of being able to just come along and give your passport over and that DBS check being done in the background by someone. So I know when I went along, it took a little while. All the systems were down at the time, so it was a bit frustrating. But just knowing that you just get it then, you don't have to figure out a time to drop in and see people, then that's really helpful too. So that's the thing that we're planning to do. So we're going to, rather than trying to organise that now, what we'll do is post about it on Slack, and we'll probably organise try and set up an event, probably evening, but not sort of a Women in Tech York event. It'll be a separate, or not timed as second Thursday of the month. It'll be separate to that. But that's the plan for the follow-up. So, yeah, I think that's all I was going to say.